If you've ever been blindsided by an ask for a raise and said, let me think about it just to buy some time, this conversation is one you wish you'd had years ago.
Welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast, the show where law firm owners learn to build wealth, scale their firms, and design the life of freedom they deserve. Hosted by Darren Wars, business and wealth advisor for law firm owners and author of The Lawyer Millionaire, this podcast delivers the strategies and inspiration you need to break free from the grind and become the financial success you envision. Let's dive in.
All right, we're here with Tyson Mutrix. Tyson, welcome to the show today.
Darren, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited about this. It's always fun to talk to you.
Yeah, I'm really pumped because I was on your show several years ago. It's great to have you back. So much has changed since then. Really, really glad to have you. Before we kind of dive in here, give us kind of the 30,000 foot view of who you are and what you do so our audience knows a little bit about you.
Yeah, my name's Tyson Mutrix. I think the most people would know me from Maximum Lawyer because we've been doing Maximum Lawyer since 2015. It was 2015. So this is the 11th year. So we've been doing it for a while. That's where most people know me. But otherwise, I own a personal injury firm where our main office is in Missouri, so St. Louis and Columbia, but we also practice in pretty much every state. There's our BHAG is to be in every single state by 2032. So that's a pretty ambitious goal. But so that's who
awesome.
I am. Do personal injury. So as most people on your podcast do.
Yeah, awesome. So today, we had some things planned, but I want to shift a little bit. In our community this year, we're talking about profit on purpose. That's our theme. And this quarter, we're reading Simple Numbers. And
great book.
As I dove into it, have you read Simple Numbers before? I'm sure you have.
It's been a few years, but that's great. But we had the author, I can't remember his name. We had him on the show years ago, but yeah, he's
great.
Really good. Yeah, really good book.
Fantastic. So, as we get into the book, he talks a lot about labor. And, labor is one of the most, usually the biggest expense for most law firms, right? And managing your labor productivity is going to be one of your key drivers of profitability, especially as you grow, you get over that 7 figures mark. So let's start with this question, because I've been thinking about this and thinking about compensation in law firms. Tell me about the first time somebody asked you for a raise and how did that conversation go?
Ooh, the first time. First time that they asked me for a raise. It was a long time ago. I think I generally remember, it was probably Kelsey, was one of my first employees. She was not number one, but she was, I think, number two. And I remember her asking for a really modest raise. She came and, it was a simple, hey, can I come talk to you? And I was like, sure. Usually those conversations go one of two ways. Hey, I'm quitting, or hey, can I get some more money? I don't even know if she asked for a specific amount. She might have, but I know she asked for a raise, and she deserved one at that time. So I had no problem with giving one to her. And it was before we had any regular reviews, all that stuff where you are already proactively talking about these things. This was more of a reactive thing, but we're talking probably 13 years ago is probably when this happened. My recollection of it might've been completely wrong, but generally that's what it was.
Yeah. And I think, cause I've been there and it can kind of come, if you're not planning on it and it's the first time you've been asked this question, it can kind of come out of the blue and you can kind of be unprepared for it. And in my experience, it can be a little bit emotionally charged sometimes. It's like there could be a feeling of insult. Like, I think many law firm owners might feel a little bit insulted when they're asked that question. You're surprised, you're kind of caught off guard. Like, how do I approach this? Should I give a raise? And then you're kind of in this awkward moment of, let me think about it. I don't know. Right. So how do we fix that?
So can I give you another story?
Yes, please.
Okay. I had one that was more recent. It was during COVID, and it was, I'm sure most people that have had a firm since then, you remember there was a time where the employees seemed to have a lot of leverage, where they were asking for significant pay increases. And I had an employee she had no prior legal experience. The only legal experience she had was in the firm. She was I think we hired her as an assistant, legal assistant. And then we moved her over into a cares team role, which is kind of like an intake team. And I remember her coming, she had like just graduated. She started as a part-time employee. That was part of what she did too. She started as a part-time employee. Then we moved her to full-time. She was with us for a few months full-time. Then she came and asked for a raise. And it was really interesting, her approach. Her approach was that she asked for, it was about an 80% increase, which is the largest increase I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And I was kind of like, I actually laughed when she said it because I thought she was joking. I seriously thought she was joking. But, and I wasn't being insulting. I wasn't rude to her or anything else. But then I remember her, and I said, we just can't pay that. Like, that's just not something we're going to do. It was more than a lot of our senior employees were making. I'm like, we just can't do that. I can't justify that. Plus, you don't have any experience. You just don't have the experience to justify that. And I said, if you did, then sure, I'd be happy to. And she's like, well, I'm putting in my 2 weeks notice. It was like,
oh, wow.
It was like a hostage negotiation or something. And I remember I was like, okay, that's fine. And then I just told her, well, then we might as well just part ways now. There's no need to put in your 2 weeks notice. And cause it was one of those, I didn't like the way she approached it. It was I felt like it was a very unprofessional way of approaching it. Cause she wasn't really the most professional in the way she approached it either. It was one of those things where I just didn't, the way she viewed the negotiation, it was like she took a very hard line with it. I was like, well, we have to still work with each other. And that's kind of the way I view negotiations.
Yeah.
we have to work with each other. Like, so it's okay to negotiate. I like when people when we offer them jobs, or even if we're giving raises, I like them negotiating, but taking a really hard line one way or the other is a really bad idea, because you have to still work with each other. And if you have resentment on one side or the other, that's a tough thing to get over. It really is.
Yeah, definitely. And if there's no like criteria, and you just give out raises because people ask, or even if you deny them and there's no like rationale for it, that can leave a real bad feeling with your employees. You can lose a lot of trust. You can really alienate them. So one of the things that I've been thinking about, Crabtree talks a little bit about this in the book, is that everyone should get paid a market-based wage. There's a salary economy. And so what we need to do is make this less emotional and more objective. And so I got thinking about this, and I was thinking, what we need to do is we need to have a compensation framework. There should be a pay scale. There should be, like, for each role, there should be levels. And the only time you get an increase is if you level up, basically you level up or the salary economy changes. And so then we can sit down with our employees and we can have a more objective conversation. And I can tell them, look, tell me how much money you want to make. I want to know. Now let's make a plan for how you get there. Have you done anything like that in your firm, like making that more objective? Tell us how you approach it now.
So we used to take more of I think it was a loose approach than what we do now. I do wonder, I'm going to answer your question, but I am curious what your thoughts on. He's got an interesting approach where, if I remember correctly, they don't have like automatic pay raises built in.
Exactly.
I don't even think they have pay raises built in. It is more of like, you have to do something to then get the raise. Like, it's got to be some sort of, like you said, leveling up. Which I do wonder what your perspective is on that, because I think that's not typical. It's definitely not typical.
I think I agree with it to a certain extent. There shouldn't be just like an automatic bump every year necessarily, because people then start to expect that every single year. And then if there's a year you can't do it, you're in trouble and everybody's mad. But if the salary economy changes, if like the market wage for your role has increased significantly, then there's an argument for you to be paid more. Maybe we're going to adjust the entire scale. But just like an automatic every year increase, yeah, that was kind of a surprising thing for me when he said that. And I was like, but it makes sense to some degree. What do you think?
Yeah. So it makes some sense. I do believe in, and I don't believe in any automatic pay increases, but I do agree in some sort of nominal increase every year. And that's based on I think cost of living. He talks a little bit about cost of living in that book, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's been years since I've read that book, but he does talk a little bit about cost of living in there. But I think just for the fact that there is an increase in cost of living every single year, that you at least have to factor that in to some extent. I'll also say our approach completely changed on how we do salaries now. We used to do lower salaries and then do higher bonuses. We had a really complex bonus system, which is a real pain in the butt if you have one. It really, because you had a lot of opportunities for bonuses, but what we were finding is in some employees that we felt really deserved higher pay, they may not have been hitting the bonuses. And so they weren't getting as much as we wanted to pay. So we just said, all right, it's a pain in the butt to track all these bonuses. Let's just scrap the entire bonus system and just increase salary substantially. And that's the model we've been going out for a while. Now, when it comes to pay increases, so we do 2 reviews a year. So we do both of those. During the annual review, we do evaluate it for an increase. There's no formula we use. It's more of the leadership team. We meet about it. We talk about it. Should we increase their pay here? Usually what we see is an employee asking for an increase during the annual review. We don't always give it. It's based on, okay, I'm not even going to pretend to say we do it the same way as Crabtree talks in the book, where if you level up, but subjectively, we kind of are saying, hey, like, have they leveled up? Is there a reason to pay them more money in this role? And so I am not, to me, and I can't remember what his perspective is on this. It could be the exact same role, but not everyone is worth the same amount. So I have zero problem paying a person that is worth more money. I have zero problem with that, even if it's the exact same position. And so we kind of view on value to the firm. It's a pretty general subjective way, I guess, but we try to make it as objective as possible.
Yeah, some kind of productivity measurement, because you're right. 2 people in the same role are not necessarily worth the same amount. And maybe there's a way you could have different levels within that role, like a junior, senior, et cetera, or something like that. Because someone can be a total workhorse in a role and just be blowing it out of the park, in comparison to somebody else.
And you should have KPIs built in. And so that's one of the things we're looking at too. Okay. So are you hitting your KPIs on a regular basis? And maybe they're both hitting KPIs, but one of them is just blowing it out of the water and one of them is just barely meeting the KPIs.
Yeah.
So we can objectively look and see, okay, one of them is actually doing a better job for the firm. They just objectively are. So it's not like we're just pulling some sort of something out of a hat and just making it up. There is some rhyme to our reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the more controversial things that Crabtree says, he subscribes to the open book management philosophy where everybody knows all the numbers. And he takes it even a step further in that everyone knows what everyone makes. And his argument is when you're paid a fair market wage, then it should make sense and it shouldn't be a problem. And if someone's like, well, why does Susie make more than me? Well, there's a great opportunity for a conversation. That's a little bit unnerving for a lot of folks. So what do you think about that?
I don't subscribe to that. I just think it creates too much resentment because I understand the philosophy. I get it, but here's the reality of it. Okay, so Susie makes more money. Okay. Because as the firm, we think Susie makes more money, but Jane makes less money. And because we think Jane is worth less. If Jane knows what Susie makes, Jane's going to think that she in her mind, she is a better employee than Susie. And that doesn't matter what we tell Jane. We can explain it to Jane, but Jane does not care. Jane in her head thinks she's more valuable because, Jane will not care about the numbers. Jane will care about, well, I do this for the firm and I do that for the firm. And so she'll find a lot of other reasons as to why she is worth more than Susie. That's just the reality. And anyone that has run a firm, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That rings a bell for a lot of you because you've had that same situation before where you've tried to, it's one of the things where we've had an employee, I think this has only happened one time. Well, I guess twice. So the story that I told you, that was an extreme example. We had an employee come and ask for a raise, and we just explained to her as to why we didn't believe she was entitled to a raise. We were nicer about it, and she quit like a week later. It was just, in her head, it didn't matter what we said. She had convinced herself that she was worth more money. So I think that there's a problem with that. You're also going to get resentment over how much does the law firm owner make. We do show, I think that there is something we do that is similar though, where we do show like all the fees that come in, because that's one of the things that we track on a regular basis. Every quarter, we look at one of our rocks is always the amount of fees that we've collected. So that is, they do see how much money is coming in. They don't see the money going out. They don't. But, I don't. They know we spend a lot of money on cases, so I don't think that they really care about seeing that anyways. But I think sharing salaries is just it's not a pain in the butt that I want. I just don't want it.
Could be dangerous. I think there's potentially, I can see both sides. I mean, on the one hand, people are going to talk. So, whether you tell them, whether everybody knows how much everybody makes or not, they're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And they're going to make assumptions about how much you as the owner make too. So there's something there perhaps, but I totally get where you're coming from. It can open up a whole can of worms.
And legally, I've seen attorneys do this. Legally, you can't do this. You can't tell employees not to tell each other what they make. There's federal law on it. So don't actually do that. That's something.
Right. That's like the classic, employer law thing, right? Where the boss, like, you're not supposed to discuss how much you make with each other,
Well, it is like one of those like unwritten rules where it was really surprising to me because we've had employees, where like, hey, I heard such and such make such and such money, I'd like a raise, and so we've had to have that conversation with people.
Sure.
But it was the first time I ever heard it. I was a little surprised because I'm thinking like, who talks to each other about their salaries? I have never had that conversation with an employee whenever I've been an employee. I've never had that conversation. It is so foreign to me, but I mean, I guess I think it's just more normal these days.
Yeah, it happens. Let's talk about an idea that I've been wrestling with. A lot of law firms have this notion of, there are billable employees and there are non-billable employees. I think there's a problem with making that separation because, and here's where I'm coming from, the non-billable employees should be measured similarly because they do contribute to profit. I mean, they help make your billable employees more billable. They improve the efficiency. They drive profit in other ways, than just, you can bill for their time. But overall, they do contribute to the profitability of the firm. And I think they should be measured that way. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, that's why you look at something like profit per employee or revenue per employee. I think that's a good metric. Yeah, another way you could do it, and I like this a little bit better, is, revenue per attorney, revenue per paralegal or case manager. You could do it that way too. That way it's a little bit more specific. Even better way is if you have teams. So if you have pods or teams, revenue per team, that's another way of looking at it too. So I think I agree with you. I think to ignore the non-legal operations side when it comes to the numbers is a really big mistake. And that's something that, I was talking to Brian Mittman about something different, but he's basically got a COO, but he's also got someone that's in charge of legal operations too, because they are so drastically different. Have a COO over legal operations doesn't make any sense. unless they
Yeah.
have some sort of legal background. But even then, they're completely different things. The business side of things and the legal side of things completely different. So having a
Yeah.
metric for those, it makes a lot of sense, because otherwise what you have is that's where you get the bloat. If you're ignoring the side of things that are not billable, you can get a lot of bloat in your business because you're ignoring it.
And everybody should be thinking about in how they connect to profit, and we should be educating all of our employees along those lines. A book that we're going to get into next quarter is the Open Book Management book. It's The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack, and basically that's his argument. Bonus systems are, like you said, can be so complex. There can be so many nuances. It can be a whole full-time job just to manage the incentive program, but a very simple way to manage the incentive program is, and KPIs too, right? We don't need 5 pages of KPIs.
No, you do not.
So his argument is, let's make profit the KPI. There's your KPI, number one. And then let's educate every employee about how what they do connects directly to profitability. How do you approach KPIs and thinking along those terms?
Well, we use a worksheet on it. It's how it's kind of a filtering process. So I can actually pull up, our worksheet and kind of walk you through the questions that we ask, because to me, it's very important how we do it. And most people wonder, like, oh, how do you develop KPIs? Well, we create job scorecards for everyone, and we ask, it's 4 questions where we go through the purpose, we go through the skill traits and competencies, we go through their functional accountabilities, and then that's how we come up with the KPIs. That's how we do it. And so it's all tied to the purpose. You'll see how this kind of works. So it starts with, why does the position exist? Then what are the 5 most important competencies to do the job? What are the 3 to 5 most important outcomes we need this person to deliver? And then what key numbers or targets would indicate this person is doing a good job? So those are all, it's kind of a funnel. That's how we create those. And so that's how they're all. So it's tied to the purpose of the firm, which their purpose should be, tied to the revenues of the firm.
Absolutely. So often we want to measure so many things, and so many things are nice to know, but we really only need to know the need to know things, and then we'll figure out what needs to change, and what needs to happen. One of the metrics that Crabtree talks about is labor productivity ratio, which is how much, well, basically gross revenue, because law firms don't usually have cost of goods sold or a lot of direct costs, but like, your total revenue, your gross revenue per labor dollar, like how, total labor spend should stay at, his recommendation is 50% or less of total
really high
revenue.
50% is high, but anyways, keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm curious what your metrics are, and how you think about like total labor cost, especially with, AI coming into the picture, and, how is that changing your thinking there?
My thinking has been changing quite a bit. I did an episode on this recently. I actually it was a live show in the association, and I was hesitant to actually publish it live because my employees sometimes listen to the podcast. I think you should keep because as a services-based business, I think keeping your overhead right in that 38% range, give or take a little bit when it comes to labor, it's a decent number to be at. You can pay your employees more. It also depends on if you factor in the owner compensation. So you can play with those numbers and all that too. But so your number, you're looking at more like 38% is what you're targeting. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, 30. I think now. I'm sure I'm hearing criticism both ways. Because I've heard people say, well, I try to keep it around 30%. Those people are going to get criticism from the people on the 50% side, because they're going to say, well, you're not paying your employees enough. So that's where you're going to get both sides. You're going to get people, you need to squeeze more out. Then you're going to get people on the 50% side that say, well, you need to pay your employees more. I think the way we do think 38% is actually pretty good. So,
okay. Yeah.
I mean, we have fought really hard. And part of this you got to remember too is we have fought extremely hard to use the fewest number of people possible. That's why we worked on top grading and hiring only A players. And if someone becomes a B or C player, make sure that they find another place outside of our firm to go work. So the 38% is a good number. They get paid good salaries, but you also got to remember, we have also, this is something else I didn't talk about. Anytime we've reduced the workforce intentionally, we increase salaries. No one asked for it. We just increase the salaries. So it's not like we are cutting the workforce and I'm just pocketing the cash. We will cut the workforce and we'll increase salaries. And we're still more profitable, but we've been very intentional about this because you have people, oh, I've got 50 people in my firm. I've got 80 people in my firm. Well, how's your profit? How are you?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of 50-person firms, 40-person firms that they're not doing well financially.
Yeah.
Now, I'll also look, the AI question is something I've had to evolve. I am still evolving on this, where my view on it is don't use AI to replace employees. Use AI to make things more efficient. And then you shift all of your employees to more of a customer service type of a position where they're client facing, you're taking care of the clients. That's the position I've taken on it. I had a coaching call with Jason Selko probably about a few weeks ago. And we had used AI to basically replace 3 positions. And we don't have a need for those 3 people. We just don't. Even shifting the customer service doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And he said, well, from a business standpoint, what's the right call? And I said, well, get rid of those 3 people. That's the right call. Which is a really tough thing for me to swallow because I've never not taken that approach. I don't want to use AI to replace people. But if we are making that logical, really the business type of a decision, the right decision is from a business standpoint that you don't need those people anymore. So you need to reduce your workforce. We have actually reduced 1. We've taken 1 off the board. And so that, I'm not comfortable taking all 3 off the board. I just don't. I don't feel good about that. It's not something I feel great about. And so I'm very hesitant to pull that trigger. I just am.
Yeah, that's a really tough question to wrestle with. I don't have any suggestions. I think that's one you've got to really figure out for yourself. Maybe, and I'm kind of thinking about it for my own business. I want every employee to be empowered by AI to improve their efficiency. And maybe that's how we grow. Maybe we can grow further without needing to increase headcount. Kind of taking that approach and how I think about it. Is how do we, but at the end of the day, if somebody, their whole role is no longer going to be needed completely, then that, hey, well, it's tough to get rid of people, but the way we think about that, or, the way I've been taught to think about that is, it's the kind thing to do because you're helping them, move on to somewhere else that's going to be a better fit for them, hopefully.
Yeah. And here's the struggle that a lot of people are going to have is that you're not going to see full roles being replaced at one time. What you're going to see is substantial parts of their role being taken in one spot, and then another role, substantial parts of another role being taken, and then substantial parts of another role being taken. And those people are just going to have less to do. They are. And so you're going to have these big pockets that are no longer necessary in your firm, and you're going to have to find a way to put that puzzle together.
Yeah. You mentioned in our call, we'll touch on this before we go. You've built an entire case management system using Claude Code and Bolt.
Yeah.
And you're dramatically reducing your software spend as a result of it. Tell us just a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, did I tell you what the origin of this was? Why we end up doing this? Because
I don't think so.
I'll give a little context. So we had shifted to Zoho a few years ago, and we had made a pretty massive upgrade to the system about now, I guess maybe 6 to 7 weeks ago, and it was a massive failure. It was massive. It was a massive failure. Things were broken, things weren't working. And I was afraid people were going to start leaving. I was like, I killed morale. I'm talking, destroyed it. So Kasha was our CTO. And so in about 3 weeks, what we did was we built from scratch a case management system using, like you said, Claude and Bolt. So Bolt.new is one of those systems where you can, type in, you can prompt it and it'll build the website and all that. And so what we did is Bolt, and then you end up saving money. People might think it's redundant. What you're doing is actually you're saving a lot of money when it comes to credits because you're having a much more specific prompt. But then you have Claude that follows up on the prompt to make sure that it was implemented correctly by Bolt. And so we have, I may or may not have said this. I know I've said this in the association. I did a demo in the association yesterday where I showed it off to everybody because, in my opinion, it's the most advanced case management system on the market. It's not on the market. We don't know calling it, but it's got all the AI built into it. It's got its own AI chat bots. It's got everything built into it. And what's really cool about it is it's brought our cost down substantially when it comes to our technology costs. But then also, if someone wants something, in a few minutes, we can implement that thing. Whatever that thing is, we can implement that thing. And then we've also done these little bitty things that you can't do in an out-of-the-box case management system where we've created all these little tooltips, which if you don't know what a tooltip is, it's that little circle with the eye in the middle of it. And when you click on it, it gives you more information. So what's really cool is we've turned those into trainings. So let's say that you're in the middle of, you need to know how to request medical records. Let's say that's we don't have that tooltip. I'm just making that up so people could get an idea of what this is. So let's say you have a new team member forgot in their training, how do you request medical records? Well, they're in the file. They're getting ready to request some medical records and they see the tooltip. They click on it and it's got the full training built in right there. So there's a pop-up, it's a full training and it will walk them through how to request medical records. So we have not fully implemented all this because we have so many trainings in Zoho. We're migrating all of those over so that we can put them throughout the entire system. So all of the trainings, they're going to go out of our trainings, all of our training modules, and put those into the system. So we implemented a new HR system. So we're not using Zoho People anymore. So we're taking everything that we can and we're creating it inside of the system so people don't have to leave. And that's the big part of it. Because where you see a lot of the drain is if you have someone, they're working. Okay. I've got to go in the system over here. Okay. And then they get distracted by something else. And then it takes them 20 minutes to get back over to this job. Okay. Now I'm over here. Okay. Boom. All right. What was I doing again? I've got that one thing I've got to do. Okay. Let me go back over here. So much of that efficiency by doing that.
Yeah.
The whole idea is to keep them right there in the system so they can do a better job. And so they can also they'll be happier. The team is, I'd say that when we had the failure of the system launch, the team was at a 2%. Like that's what morale was. Now they're at, I'd say 99 or 100% because they are so excited. They're like, can you add this thing? Can you add this thing? Can you add this thing? We have a running, we can't keep up. We can't keep up with all the work because they're so excited about it. So it's pretty cool.
That is awesome. I love that. Well, I'll have to play around with, what is that? Bolt.new? Is that what you mentioned?
Yeah, there's Bolt, there's Bolt.new, there's Lovable, Grok just launched one, Grok Build. I've not played with it yet. You have to have whatever the premier Grok is, whatever that is. You've got to have that, but I've not played around with it. But there's a bunch of them. I like Bolt because that's what I started on, but I know there's a bunch of other ones out there.
Okay, very cool. Well, Tyson, it's been great having you on the show today. One last question before we go. We always ask our guests, is there something you're reading right now that you're really enjoying that you'd like to recommend to our listeners?
I don't know how this is going to be received, but I am going to reread the Bible. So I bought this Bible and this isn't like me preaching about anything. So I promise I'm not going to preach, but it was one of those things where like, I saw this really cool Bible and it was like it's explains the history of the Bible as you're reading it. And it tells all the stories and explains the different stories. So I find history, very interesting to me. And so it's one of those things where it actually goes through and like explains, different parts of like why this was in the Bible. It's very interesting to me. So that's what I've been. Very
cool. Well, very cool and very unique. Yes.
I'm sure you weren't
Thanks,
expecting
Tyson.
that one. It was honestly not a book I expected to read, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Very nice. Well, anything else you want to leave our listeners with before we go?
No, I appreciate doing this. I love your show. I love coming on and do these things. So thanks for having me. And if you ever, want to come on the show again, just let me know.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Tyson.
Yeah. Thank you.
A huge thank you to Tyson Mutrix, founder of Maximum Lawyer and the owner of one of the fastest growing personal injury firms in the country. You can find all the links to connect with him in today's show notes. What struck me about this conversation was how easy it is to let raised requests catch you emotionally. I've been there myself, and I've watched it happen to 100 firm owners. Tyson's story about the 80% raise demand during COVID is an extreme case, but the lesson lands universally. The moment compensation becomes a one-off negotiation, you've already lost trust on both sides. The fix isn't tougher negotiation skills, it's a clear pay scale and a market-based framework that takes the emotion out of it. Here at the Lawyer Millionaire, we help law firm owners build the financial systems that turn decisions like this one from emotional to objective. A compensation framework that scales, cash flow you can actually trust, and integrated tax and business planning that makes paying your A players what they're worth genuinely doable. When the numbers underneath your firm are clean, the conversations on top of it get a whole lot easier. If today's conversation hit home, come join us inside the Lawyer Millionaire community at community.lawyermillionaire.com. This quarter, we're working through simple numbers together, and conversations exactly like this one are happening every week. Well, that's it for today, friend. But remember one thing. If your law firm isn't building you wealth and freedom, what the hell are you doing? Can I get an amen? Now, go make it happen, and I'll see you next time.
Are you a law firm owner looking to build real wealth and break free from the daily grind? On the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast, we share practical strategies to grow your practice, maximize profits, and create the financial freedom you deserve. Join host Darren Wars as he interviews top experts and successful law firm leaders who share their secrets. Don't just practice law, build a legacy. Listen now to the Lawyer Millionaire wherever you get your podcast. The Lawyer Millionaire Podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended as legal, tax, or investment advice. Listeners should consult with a qualified professional before making any financial or business decisions. The views expressed by guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Darren Wars or Lawyer Millionaire Wealth Advisors.